12 minutes. 30th of August 2021. Episode 6. Weather, glassy crystal caverns and a necrotic aura. Summary. The session began on the next floor of the Vahaslo Tower upon defeating the rampart which activated the portal monster on the floor below. Latte introduces himself to the crew, becoming a new player character. Kurala dropped her shield and sword to cover her face before stepping forward, gripping the rank strips of a fellow Sandorian royal guard, pail of life in her arms. Holding back her emotions, Kurala noticed 5 more ally corpses. Kurala prepared a warrior's send-off for all her fallen knights, and Nick stepped forward to conduct a eulogy for the dead. Nick called to Altana, welcoming these fallen mortals into her embrace at the gates of paradise. "Can I get a hallelujah? One more time, sorry, he'll stop. Gates of paradise into our hearts." With a 1-2 kiss your mama crisscross spaghetti sauce, the eulogy was over as the accessories of the dead were salvaged for the battles ahead. The corpses were kinda sent off, because Nick sent half of them using fire and radiant magic, while the rest of them rats personally took the liberty of disposing of them by means of ingestion, which at the time was a very efficient means of honoring the dead. Kurala afterwards was crushed by this event, deciding to, instead of be overwhelmed by emotion, to instead stay busy grooming and cleaning the wagon/mounds. The joyful faces of the gargoyles jumped and danced before a well-dressed Kutrub, the largest of the gargoyles, an activated portal, and a damaged rampart. The well-dressed Kutrub adjusted its collar as it spoke to the largest gargoyle and quickly barked his goons to go into the warp portal. At first glance of the crew arriving at the floor, and quickly explained to their client the functionality of the rampart in these towers. It was quite simple. The rampart is a shield for the tower. The more HP it has, the more active creature there are in the area, but once it gets low enough, the whole floor is deactivated, as well as activating any portal monsters. Being pleased by this, the gargoyles restored the rampart before escaping to the floor above. The party now faced 2 groups of pirate skeletons, 2 Kolodi clones, an active portal monster, a full hit point rampart, and 2 stegosaurs, death claws, ready to chomp. The battle took a few liberties, with the 2 new players being rats the Arakokra mostly flying during the battle, and Latte the goblin artificer with a steel defender absorbing AoE damage. One such liberty was the punting, tossing, dropping, and utilizing of the rampart like a thrown weapon or swung weapon between J-Bandy and rats, concluding if the rampart was weak enough the encounters will be neutralized, which was true in the end. Rats could fly, so J-Bandy has to rely on tossing it from the ground. The battle began with the crew attempting to communicate with the stegosaurs, but failed when the party realized they had charmed their baby chocobo and were fighting between the 2 stegosaurs who would ingest the tiny bird first. Time Zone quickly jumped into action to cast a minor illusion, giving the baby chocobo time to use the refraction from the sphere of the portal monster to project 2 baby chocobos instead of just 1. J-Bandy took the opportunity to snatch up the baby chocobo, who was returning to the stegosaurs after being led away from them by the spell. Not soon after a few exchanging of attacks, the 2 nearby Kolodi clones began to call hellfire upon the entire battlefield, which, unfortunate for them, liquidated all the pirate skeletons and downed 1 party member. Nick soon fell from the 2nd stegosaur, which was quickly taken down by J-Bandy and rats lobbing the giant's structured rampart at it. J-Bandy and Jason fell, but not soon after the crew was able to turn the tides in their favor, even with half their party members down. What a test of fortitude! The rampart was damaged again and the portal was opened to advance to the last chamber of the Vahaslo Tower. The next room offered separate surprises for the crew. This room was not as hostile as the previous and housed a machine in the middle of the room which with a strength, dexterity, or intelligence-based skill check would be repair into operation. The crew wanted to long rest after the previous encounters and assigned duties for watch. This was when the crew suddenly encountered their first encounter aside from the regular monsters and monstrosities the crew have fought up to this point. This is the first true encounter from the table. Fortunately enough, it was just one Kutrub. After finishing up, the crew was ready to proceed forward after examining what was visible from their starting position. Suddenly, two Dinazi tigers charmed by Cam smelled out the crew who tried their best to distract it with meat similar to the Biako bait distraction in the previous sessions. This time the tigers weren't as interested in the bait at first and more in the bag of meat by Time Zone. Jason quickly charged in to save Time Zone from being eaten by the tiger when suddenly one of the frozen demonic aura devices hanging from the ceiling snaps, falling onto the tigers and Jason, revealing a block of ice housing a strange lizard person inside. Upon pulling back the chunks of ice, a new player is introduced, a caster hybrid named Theta. The crew did their best to not show emotion when looting their previous comrade and took no time at all to welcome Theta into the madhouse. Time Zone began to circle the broken pieces of ice, then the corpses of the two Dinazi tigers, then the machine, and eventually spotted Goliath examining a damaged rampart. According to Goliath, the cultivated enemies designated to the rampart will intensify when it is charged and lose potency upon losing charge. This technology could most definitely assist in the protection of Jeannot from enemy forces. Goliath welcomed Time Zone to a few games of chess as Cam made his introduction to the crew. "Well, I'm the guy paying you, so you all work for me. This is what we're after, so let's get to work," Cam barked at the crew, who proceeded to check, clean, step back, think, and repeat against this mysterious ancient machine in control of the teleportation in the area. Tom the Bard took the opportunity to get Cam comfortable enough to ask the tough questions. Cam noticed Tom was admiring a bowl of delicious fruit tomatoes, grabbing the bowl and offering them to those working on the machine. The machine, not having a digestive tract or the need for substance, declined the offer for the fruit and instead welcomed the crafty effect of the artificer helping fix it. Noticing the machine firing on all cylinders and the workers taking a breather, Cam decided to join Tom at a nearby table. The table showed a map of Vanadial's eastern continent, Eregia, Whitegate Peninsula, and the Arapago Archipelago. The ocean to get to Eregia is the Gugrud Blue Ocean. "So tell me about the relics in the ceiling," Tom quietly asked Cam, who missed the edge of the table falling on his face. "Well," Cam stood quickly, responding, "I suppose I should sign your contract. Just bring it to me in Jeannot and I'll give you whatever type you want, gem or gold pieces." Cam called Time Zone and Goliath over while casting a warp to Jeannot portal. Suddenly a snap went off and everybody was unconscious. Meanwhile, on a separate floor, Kurila is chasing a hunch in a nearby chamber. Each of them were as good of a fighter as me, and even in rank Kurila thought they scored the same, and to be in the special task force as well as one of my knights is an achievement on its own. These were my men. Kurila began to angry as she noticed magic going off before her. "Part of me died with that squad. I'm changed. No longer shall I hold the blade the same." Kurila knew something was suspicious, that something was up in the tower, and decided to investigate in her raging madness. She attacked the concentrating Kolodi, who turned to ropes as she lunged at the being. Abound to this fate, Kurala now brings with her a deep wound of suffering from not being there for her troops or to lead them to victory, and must live with survivor's guilt. Each breath she takes will be a mile for them, and she will triumph in their names until she meets them. Everyone she trusted was now dead except for the crew. The dream Collodi cast was of him, his true form, with various shots of the machine throughout history and its construction. Discoveries of new styles of fire or magic. The lush jungles. Cool villages. Magic being introduced and technology forming civilization. These ancient folk constructed columns to worship the mother crystals and controlled their magical weave. They were also abandoned throughout time until finally restored to glory for good at its present form. The crew now rest inside frozen containers. Rest is a subjective term. Kurala ran past the incapacitated stegosaur and stared at the room of her new friends. No sign of Cam or Goliath. A lone portal to the south behind rats. The steel defender besides Lotte. A broken rampart. Kurala. The buffalo mount. Baby Chocobo. The wagon with the resting colibri. The machine in the middle of the room was running on all cylinders. Each chamber held a player character and each had a unique Tier 2 treasure chest. The steel defender could break through the ice like butter and walked counterclockwise to free each player character. Getting to the treasure, no mimics this time. Man, the players have been so lucky during the introduction to never fight a mimic, what luck. Also they only had one encounter, what luck. 4 of the treasure chests had hand puzzles in which the opener would solve a puzzle, and if they fail, snap arm is lobbed off. J Bandy easily solved each of the 4 hand puzzles since he could reassemble his fingers at a whim to solve the combinations. Unfortunately, one of the chests was lost, but 3 of the remaining were opened with 1 spell slot magic spell. The introduction to the adventure is now finished. Let it be known the conflict between the nations, the awakening of the dragons and the steadfast hordes of adventurers come together. The story in the hearts and minds of the seekers of unlimited power and infinite glory within the land of Vanadile grow hungry. Jeannot will be the battlefield of the seekers. Their fulmination of fortune and intrigue. Unseen hands exchanging hands. One stretches as one cramps. We know the heavy tides the seekers face are choices made in good faith, guiding their sails into a calming paradise or a scolding hell. Tie your combat boots and tighten your belts to prepare for the ultimate prize or temptation. Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.